and this is my take. Today I'd like to discuss an issue that I definitely think the Wall Street movement should bring up, and that would be the arrests that are going on all across the nation. I believe that one of the demands that the Wall Street movement should make eventually, when they do present a set of demands or bring up a set of issues that need to be addressed in our country, I think that one of them should be that these arrests. I believe that they should demand that those who were arrested and did not commit any acts of violence or resort to any form of violence, those who were arrested, they should be exonerated and their records expunged of the arrests. I believe that our country was built on civil disobedience when it was mandated, when the people needed to stand up for themselves, when the representation of this country failed them. Our people revolted against an oppressive regime, an oppressive empire, and resulted in the formation of our country. So I don't think these people should be punished. I don't think that their records should show that they've been arrested when they were only fighting for the rights of the entire nation. On a lighter note, I'd like to talk about a comparison that I've come up with for the Occupy Wall Street movement. That comparison would be those teen angst movies from the 80s, the ones where there's an outcast kid who comes to town and all of a sudden some bully starts terrorizing him. Well, at the end of that movie, that kid eventually stands up for himself. And in my comparison, that outcast kid is the Occupy Wall Street movement. The bully is, of course, the corporations and the elite who are stagnating our economy and terrorizing the rest of us by their policies and practices. And in that movie, there's a scene near the end where it culminates in what's called the slow clap. And in what happens in this scene is that the outcast kid is out there talking and defending himself and standing up for himself. And he's basically pointing out the weakness within the bully. He's exposing the truth about the bully. And he's telling the rest of the crowd that's encircled him that this bully does not have the stranglehold on all of them that they have come to believe he does have. In that case, this crowd is America. This crowd are the other 99%ers out there who are watching to see what will happen with the Occupy Wall Street movement. And in that scene that culminates in the slow clap, what usually happens is the camera pans around the crowd, and as the outcast is exposing the bully, you see in the faces of the crowd that they're coming to the consensus that the outcast kid is right. He's been right the whole time, and that they should side with him, and that they should stand up with him against the bully. You see it in their faces. They all realize that the bully has been wrong in terrorizing them and controlling their lives. And then there's another group in those movies that I deserve comparison, and that would be the bully's friends, the bully's cohorts. And these are the guys that stand around with the bully and side with him, and they're the sidekicks. And at this pivotal moment in the movie, they come to realize that they too have been terrorized by the bully, and they start to wonder why they sided with the bully in the first place, why they've stood by the bully's side for all this time. In my comparison, that group of bullies' friends are the police. Because right now, they might be siding with the corporations, the elite, the bullies, but they're starting to realize that they too have been under attack by this bully. As in those movies, there's always a scene where the bully picks on his own friend, and they too have been terrorized by this same bully. The elite have been attacking the police for months. For years now, they've been accusing the police, firefighters, teachers, nurses, first responders in general, public workers and unionized workers in general, of being the problem with our economy. That does not make any sense when they are drawing 43% of the income that our economy generates. So how can all these firefighters, policemen be the drag? And what I see is, as in those movies, the bullies' friends, the police in this case, start to think about in the past how they have been terrorized by the bully as well as the crowd in general. And they start to turn on the bully. In the movie, they usually just walk away. And it seems to me that in this case, at least as far as I've witnessed myself, the police are starting to realize that, and they're starting to turn away from the authority. Maybe not overtly, but in small ways. They are not hassling those protesters who are not trying to be violent, who are not trying to harm anything. They're only trying to make life better. They are not, in Miami, which is where I am from, the police officers actually directed traffic as the protesters moved from one location to another. They didn't, I wouldn't say they helped the movement. They were just doing their jobs, but they did it in a way that was actually helpful. And I know I've seen or heard and seen officers who are out there questioning the actual motives of the elite when they have the protesters arrested, and they send the police out there as their guards, their guardians, to protect them from this unruly group of protesters, or as the media initially called them, mob of protesters. Like I said, this is something that they did not sign up to do. They did not join the police force to arrest people who were fighting for their rights and for the rights of their country, in this case the United States, and the people of this country. And that leads to my next point, where I think I've said it in the past, but I'm truly tired of hearing people say, just be happy you have a job. Because after a while, that statement's going to be turned to just be happy you have food and water. For a lot of people in this country, that statement is already true. And it shouldn't lead there for any more people. This country has enough wealth, has enough resources to support itself and sustain itself. But when you have very few people controlling those resources and hoarding those resources, then of course the country falls down, and of course you end up with a very large group of impoverished people. And then if you want to take that a step further, just be happy you have a job. I wonder if those people, those homeless people in Washington, D.C., that banks are paying to help evict the soon-to-be homeless people, I wonder if those people have that same ideal, that they're just happy to have a job. I imagine so, because that means that they can be just happy to have food and water. But is that where America really wants to go? Do we want to just be happy that we have a job? Do we want to be just happy to have food and water? I don't think so. I don't think that's what our founding fathers fought for. I can't imagine that that's what they fought for. I can't imagine that they fought for us to go from one form of tyranny to another form of tyranny. You know, to me, the economic assaults on this country aren't coming from anywhere but the elite, the corporations that are fighting for their bottom dollar. They're not really looking out for individuals, and they never have. And I don't expect that they ever should. But we shouldn't be allowing them to dictate how our country is run. That's just wrong. And that brings me to the next thing. As far as, you know, what's going on in politics these days, I have my reservations about President Obama. I don't feel that he's been strong enough and stood up enough for the people of this country. And even though, you know, the things that he's doing now do seem to lead in that direction, as far as helping homeowners, which is, you know, honorable pursuit, I just don't think that it just seems too convenient to as far as when it seems to be occurring. I don't recall him standing up to the Republicans in Congress until his re-election became an issue, and then all of a sudden he was for the people. What I recall, and I hope people don't, you know, look back and only see the good. What I recall is when unions were asking for his, you know, his, not really his help, but just for his support, just to say that he backs them. I don't recall him standing up at those times. I don't recall the Democrats doing it either. My recollection is this, that when Paul Ryan came out with his budget, I didn't hear a peep from the Democrats. it wasn't until after those YouTube town hall meetings where the Republican constituents were complaining to Paul Ryan and others that the Democrats seized on that opportunity. And to me, that means they're just opportunists. So I do not necessarily side with the Democrats either. Please do not think that that's my goal. But one thing I can say is that given the field of presidential candidates on the GOP side of the coin, I don't think we should be looking at them at all. I know that it might be that President Obama might not necessarily deserve a second term, but I do know that none of the Republican candidates deserve a first term. So let's not try to help them out in any way. And again, like I said, I don't have any faith in the Democrats. Ideally, what I would like to see is that a third independent party does develop. And I know that 2012 is too close for that to happen, but possibly looking at 2016, I hope that this movement, this Occupy Wall Street movement, is strong enough to create that independent third party, to make Americans' voice actually be part of the conversation. We shouldn't have debates about the deficit and things that don't affect Americans directly. And it shouldn't be about terrorism and how much fear America should have about terrorists. Americans should fear what's going on in our economy, and they do. So it doesn't really make sense that we spend so much in defense to fight terrorists. How many terrorists? I've never had a terrorist directly affect my life, but I have had the economy that has suffered through the Bush years. That has affected my life. My hopes for the future were shot, and I did not foresee anything changing. And that was really a big problem for me. Depression, fine, I could deal with that. I've been depressed before and I've gotten over it. But when I started losing hope, that's when I started really getting scared of what was going to happen to not only me, but to my kids and to the country in general. So I think that, one thing that might be considered coming up is that we have two groups out there, both politicians, and a lot of people realize that both sides are being paid by corporations. Their campaigns are support them. They get donations all the time from corporations, from the elite, and I just think that that system needs to end. And hopefully that's another thing that Occupy Wall Street will come up with. But when looking at the two sides of this evil coin, which is another issue I have, I'm tired of people saying, go for the lesser of two evils. Why can't we be going for the greater of two goods? But besides that, that's beside the point. When you look at the two sides, we can either choose the side that are telling us they're going to screw us over. And that would be the Republicans. They're telling us that they're going to basically keep the status quo. They're going to keep it the way it's been for the past 30 years, which enriches the rich and impoverishes the poor. Why would we even want to consider that? So, I'm hoping that people do come out and vote, because there are some Democrats that have fought for on our behalf. I look at Bernie Sanders as one of those. I actually would vote for him for president over anybody out there right now. DeFazio, I would have him run as vice president because I like what he says. But neither of those scenarios are going to happen, and neither of those will happen if people keep saying that we cannot have a third party. As long as you say that, that will be true. It's only when you start thinking in a different manner that we could have a third party that becomes a possibility. Maybe 2016 might be that time. I think that's enough time for us to mobilize. I mean, look what Occupy Wall Street's done in 30 days. They've changed the entire conversation from the crap that they were talking about, the deficits and all these, and abortions and these things, to, you know, jobs, which is what this country needs right now. And they've actually drawn focus to the American voice, to the voice of the people.